Welcome to This Polymath Life. I'm your host, Margaret McNellis. On this podcast, we talk all things creativity, curiosity, and cosmos. Let's get started. Good morning and happy Friday, listeners. This episode, I want to talk about something that I feel like all of us polymaths experience, and it really seems like the perfect place to be kicking off this podcast. And that is, how do I find time to be a polymath? How do I find time to not just scrape the surface of multiple topics, but to go really deep, to engage my curiosity, to learn in ways that are probably not standard expected ways of learning? Now, listen, I work in higher education. I've been through several rounds of higher education. I have 3 degrees. I understand its values. I understand the challenges in it, from both the student and teacher perspective. And there are many challenges, like there are with any industry or institution. And, I teach as an adjunct. I teach English 101. So helping people learn to write academic essays. For me, it's not so much about the learning to write. They do that, of course, but it's about the confidence and the growth mindset, which is something that a polymath hopefully has, innately. If you're going to be a lifelong learner, you kind of have to have a growth mindset, but teaching people to embrace that in a society where perfection is prized, or at least what seems like perfection, especially on social media and stuff like that, that means a lot to me. But having been through 3 degrees, all of which gave me excellent takeaways, but the system is challenging. There are bureaucratic processes and practices that can actually hinder learning. So a lot of my learning has been outside of formal education, especially in the last however many years. Now, I graduated from college in January of 2007, and then I was in grad school the first time from 2014 to 2015, and then the second time from 2017 to 2019. But in between all those times, I was learning from other sources. Sometimes that means just reading. Sometimes it means taking a course here or there. Often I'll look for a free course first, just to, see, especially if it's a topic that I'm diving into after a long period of time, or it's a topic I've never delved into before, so I can kind of gauge, is this a cursory interest or something I'm going to want to sink my teeth into? So I'll learn in a lot of ways that have nothing to do with the institutionalized learning in the society in which I live, which happens to be the United States. But all of this, the learning, the practice, right? Because I'm an artist, I'm a writer. I recently got back into acting. That's a lot of fun. I love learning about philosophy and history and, astrology, of course. That's a lifelong study. Even if you're working as an astrologer, you're studying it for life because there's always so much to learn, which is fantastic. I love it. But how do you find the time for all of this, especially when you also have to, earn an income? And to me, that has always been the biggest challenge. But what I have really focused on doing is finding ways to prioritize time each day for creative pursuits, or what I think of as polymath pursuits, where it might not be that I'm, learning about or practicing the same thing every single day, but each day I'm giving time over to that part of myself. And this has really helped me because it still allows me to do all the other things that life requires us to do, including, having interpersonal relationships with friends and family and such. But it also guarantees that I'll have time to exercise that curiosity in myself, that lifelong urge to constantly be learning new things. So the way that I approach it is I set aside at least an hour a day for this. It's not always the same time of day. This semester I was teaching Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and I'm not much of a morning person. So, my polymath or creative time was often later in the day on those days. Whereas other days I might, prioritize it first thing in the morning after I've woken up, had breakfast, etc. And then, dive into that for a while before doing other work. Now, one of the things that has also facilitated this is that I work, in addition to teaching, I work as a contractor, working remotely from home. And, this has enabled me to, for the most part, make my own schedule. If there's a meeting or something, I have to account for that. But I, for the most part, have flexibility in my schedule. And this has allowed me to explore a lot of topics and to go deep into those topics. So for example, I spend a lot of time with astrology because I find it fascinating, not for predictions, but for patterning, which I talked about in the last episode, in case you missed it. And I love to learn about it because it sheds so much light on what it is to be human. And it helps me understand why people might be acting the way they might be acting. Because I can think about what's their astrological fingerprint, basically. And if there's somebody well known, I can look up their chart and take a look at it and be like, oh yeah, that tracks. So I really like going deep into that, making time for it, making time to participate in creating art, in writing. I'm slowly plugging away at writing a play. I'm doing watercolors somewhat regularly. I am drawing as well. Always into history. Right now I'm watching the Ken Burns American Revolution documentary. It is so well done. I deeply recommend it, but each episode is like 2.5 hours. So it takes like a week to go through an episode for me because, sometimes by the end of the day, I'm a little sleepy and I like to stay awake when I'm learning something new. But, or sometimes I'll do like a great course type of thing and just spend time going deep into a subject until I feel like a good number of my questions have been answered. So it's just really important to set aside that time on a regular basis. And, that's not to say that it has to be every single day. If you're out there wondering, like, I really want to participate in life this way, but I can't do it every day, that's okay. Do it when you can. I'm someone who I've tried like time blocking on calendars. I don't like it. It feels too constrained for me. I have to have a little bit more freedom. So what I do is I kind of have like a to-do list for the week, and I'll see how I feel on any given day and like to start working on things that I want or need to do for that week. So it gives me that flexibility. And that includes my polymath pursuits as well. Even things like this podcast. I know I want to drop episodes on Wednesday and Friday. I don't demand that I have it ready by a certain hour. It's whenever the idea comes to me of what I want to talk about. Last time that came to me the day before. So I recorded it and scheduled it. Today that didn't come to me until halfway through the morning. So I'm recording it now. It's, that's something that I need in order to embrace my growth mindset. And you may be different, but if you're like me, I would say don't put a ton of pressure on yourself, but just give yourself room to explore those things that drive your curiosity. And, maybe you're working a 9 to 5 or another type of shift where you're not working from home and you don't have flexibility in your schedule. That's fine. Go down a rabbit hole on your lunch break, or make it something that you do with your morning coffee or tea, or, read on a topic that interests you for a half hour before you go to sleep. It doesn't have to be 24/7. So when I talk about this polymath life, when I am talking about living in a way that embraces creativity and curiosity and, yes, the cosmos, then I am talking about it in a way that it fits into our modern life, right? This is not many, many years ago when perhaps people were inheriting large sums of money or maybe marrying someone wealthy and just had all the time in the world to do whatever they wanted to do. Life isn't like that right now for most of us, and that's fine. But, in the area of your desired polymathy, mine happens to be in the humanities. Give yourself the grace and the space to explore it as you will. And don't put too much pressure on yourself, because we all have to live in this regular old world of ours and do the adulting things we don't want to do. So on that note, I'm going to wish you a pleasant weekend, and I'll be back to chat to you next Wednesday. If you have questions, I would love to take listener questions. So feel free to submit them on my website. I will put a link in the show notes as always. And I'll talk to you next time. Thanks again for listening. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of This Polymath Life with your host, Margaret McNellis. I'm delighted to have had you here with me. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, share, and review. Please feel free to leave comments. I can't wait to hear from you so that we can continue to make this a discussion you can't wait to be a part of.